genuine inspiration, right? Now in a dream, our mind continuously does this. We create and perceive our world simultaneously, and our mind does this so well that we don't even know what's happening. It allows us to get right in the middle of that process by taking over the creating part. Now this is where I need you. You create the world of the dream. We bring the subject into that dream, and they fill it with their subconscious. Well, dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something is actually strange.
The hardware is most definitely the first thing that'll impress you since it's that good. In a way, it's very much like a Samsung Galaxy S9 due to rounded corners and curved edges on all sides. But that doesn't make it any less impressive. In fact, Huawei has added their own touches to it which makes it stand out. I personally love the red accent on the power button, and the twilight gradient back looks amazing. It's different from the P20 Pro Twilight, which only had a dual gradient, since this has sort of an aqua to purple to black fade, and it looks great. There's an emerald green option as well, but without a gradient. That too looks good, but perhaps not as special, and we see most going with the Twilight option. The phone has an unspecified version of Corning Gorilla Glass at both the front and back, and it blends seamlessly with the aluminum midframe. No raised portions or unsightly panel gaps here. The phone is definitely a fingerprint magnet, but then again it's expected considering it has glass on both the sides. However, one thing you won't expect is how grippy this is. Surely a plastic or metal phone with soft touch matte finish might grip better, but this is surprisingly grippy despite the glossy exterior. This is thanks to a micro pattern that's in the glass, giving extra grip. The ergonomics are on point as the phone is really easy to handle. Despite the larger footprint and thicker waistline, the size is masked very well by the curved edges. The P20 Pro is 7.8mm thick, while this is 8.6mm thick, and despite that, the Mate 20 Pro feels slimmer in the hand and feels smaller as well as easier to use. It's also smaller than the S9 Plus despite having a larger display thanks to the minimal bezels. The phone is also now IP68 rated for protection against dust and water, an upgrade over the IP67 rating on the P20 Pro, which allows for deeper submersion. It can survive heavy rain, your shower, or even your local pool, but just don't take it beyond 1.5 meters, since beyond that the water pressure will result in water creeping in. The SIM card slot too has a rubber ring to make sure the water doesn't get in, and we also did try it in salt water without any issues. But do make sure that you wash it in fresh water thoroughly, as salt water is corrosive and any remaining deposits of salt, especially in the ports, can damage it. There's also a specific underwater housing that can be used with the underwater photography mode, and it's been confirmed that it's coming to India, but we are unsure of the pricing yet. Hopefully we'll get our hands on it soon and we'll be able to give you a review of the same as well. The display is a large 6.39-inch OLED unit with an aspect ratio of 19.5:9 and is sharp with a resolution of 3120 by 1440 pixels. That's a very tall display, but the taller form factor along with the curved edges really helped to mask the size, and also it wasn't too difficult for me to reach the top and swipe down notifications even with one hand. Although people with smaller hands might still need to resort to using the other hand to do so. The display is bright and visually impressive as you would expect an OLED panel to be. Sunlight legibility is great too, and the viewing angles are excellent. There's a slight color shift at steep angles where the display colors get a bit warmer, but we generally wouldn't be using our phone that way. We did check the display for light bleeds, since some reports suggested that some units of the Mate 20 Pro had it, but even at 100% brightness using the Screen Bleed Test app, we got perfect pitch blacks as you would get on such a panel. The display is really nice to use thanks to curved edges, and it supports HDR10 as well as DCI P3 color gamut. You can choose between 3 different color modes, and there's an RGB notification LED in the notch. It's also worth mentioning that the phone has wideband L1 support, so you get the ability to stream HD content on Prime and Netflix. Speaking of the notch, it's quite wide and albeit shorter than many other notches, but there's a good reason for that. The notch houses not just your regular front camera, ambient light and proximity sensors, but it also houses the entire 3D face scanning mechanism, which if you look at the schematics leaves hardly any room to spare. You can disable the notch in the settings, but I personally am indifferent to notches, so I leave it on. The 3D face scanner makes use of 3 components: a flood illuminator which shines light onto your face. This is an IR light and hence is invisible to the naked eye. This is also what makes it possible to detect your face even in extreme low light or pitch dark conditions. Secondly, you have a dot projector which maps your face and checks whether it matches the Face ID that has already been stored, which by the way is a pretty simple process that involves taking a 3D map of your face. You just need to keep your head in the frame and move it around so that it takes a full scan. Once registered, the flood illuminator lights up your face, helps the dot projector apply the points, and the IR camera recognizes your face and then proceeds to unlock the device. You can choose to either directly unlock the phone or have a slide to unlock option like in iPhones, in which case you also have the notifications expand and reveal themselves once your face is detected. We got a 100% success rate with the scanner. It's extremely fast and accurate and even works at crazy angles, which helps when you're in bed for example, but for some reason doesn't work when the phone is completely upside down. Not that you would really need it anyway though. There's also a raise to wake feature that you can enable so that the phone automatically scans your face and gets unlocked when you do so. That tiny chin must be making you feel that the fingerprint scanner has moved to the back, but no. Huawei has gone for an in-display fingerprint solution. It's actually located much higher than what you see on phones such as Vivo or even OnePlus for that matter, and is closer to the middle of the display than the bottom. It's a bit of a task registering the fingerprint as it's quite slow and finicky. But once you do register it, it's pretty fast to unlock and accurate. Only thing though is that you need to press your thumb or registered finger onto it. Simply tapping doesn't unlock it and you need to put a bit of pressure, and it also takes a moment to scan, although unlocking itself is fast. It requires extra brightness in order to recognize your fingerprint, so momentarily the screen brightness will go up, and it also works in 360 degrees. It should work without any issue on a plastic screen protector since it's thin and flexible, but we are not sure how well it'll work on a glass one. I still prefer a physical fingerprint scanner since it's faster and more convenient, but thanks to a fast face unlock on the phone, I found myself using that more than the fingerprint scanner itself. This is a cool technology and gives you bragging rights, but not quite as practical as a traditional fingerprint scanner. The Mate 20 Pro features a Kirin 980 chipset which is built in-house by Huawei. It's the first chipset to be based on a 7nm architecture. The octa-core chipset provides great performance, and the architecture also makes it efficient in terms of battery life, which we shall discuss later on in the review. We never had any issues related to performance, and 6GB of RAM also works well for multitasking. I do wish that they give 8GB of RAM considering the price point, but then again, even Google gives only 4GB of RAM on a phone that's much more expensive than this. So as long as it works well, I guess we have to accept it. It does well in terms of gaming too, and while I can't exactly comment on PUBG, I never faced any latency or lag that does plague some older Huawei devices due to a GPU. This was fast and worked brilliantly well. There's 128GB of storage that's expandable using the hybrid dual SIM card slot. At first glance you'll think that it's a single SIM slot, but it's actually a clever design. It has the cards back to back, which also should give more room inside for other stuff. But one downside though is that while it supports memory expansion, it doesn't take microSD cards. Instead it takes nano memory cards, which is a new standard and one that's shaped and sized exactly like a nano SIM as the name suggests. Smaller with same capacity and performance is usually a good thing, but not when the availability is scarce, and it seems like that's going to be the case for a while. Hopefully we'll see fast adoption and availability, but at least 128GB of storage is still decent for most. The phone comes with Android 9 Pie and EMUI 9 on top of it. It's smooth and RAM management is also good. Camera 2 API is enabled out of the box, save for RAW support, but the default camera itself allows for RAW capture through the Pro mode. Project Rebel is supported but not seamless updates. The phone has a stereo speaker system where the primary speaker is located at the bottom and the earpiece doubles up as the secondary speaker. However, the secondary speaker is small and weaker than the primary one. It gives a small stereo effect but is feeble, and the loudness isn't very inspiring. Guess they had limited space and hence the low volume output. But one thing that's impressive is the way that the speaker is designed, and it has an invisible speaker design. The speakers are internal and the sound is outputted through the USB Type-C port. It's a neat little design, and covering the Type-C port with your hands or fingers blocks it almost fully, while there's only a 10% or so reduction in loudness when you connect a cable, so it's not too bad then. Sound quality is also decent but not great. Audio output over the wired route however is much better. It needs an adapter or dongle since there is no 3.5mm audio jack, and audio is routed through the Type-C port. There's a dongle bundled and output is clear and has great dynamic range with minimal stereo crosstalk. The primary camera is a 40MP 1x1.7 inch sensor, which is the current biggest sensor on a smartphone. It has an aperture of f1.8 and a focal length of 27mm. The next camera is a 1x2.7 inch 20MP ultra wide camera with 16mm focal length, f2.2 aperture, and finally an 8MP 1x4 inch telephoto camera offering 3x optical zoom and f2.4 aperture. There's OIS on board as well as face detection autofocus and laser autofocus. The cameras also have Leica optics and you get a 24 megapixel f2 camera up front. We've already done an extensive camera review on the phone, and in short, it's among the best camera phones on the market currently, so do make sure to check out our camera review to know why. The battery is now bigger than the already massive 4000 mAh unit we had on the P20 Pro. The 4200 mAh battery capacity is good for an entire day of use even for heaviest of users, and we got 7+ hours of screen on time every day and around 8 hours of screen on time on some days. The Mate 20 Pro also comes with Huawei's new 40-watt supercharged technology, which is the current fastest available in India. We were able to charge the Mate 20 Pro from 15 to 100% in an hour flat. In 10 minutes it went from 13% to 36%, and by 20 minutes it had reached 57%. Quite impressive stats really, and it basically is able to refill 59.5 mAh per minute. OnePlus 16 comparison, which has dash charge, can do 44 mAh per minute. It's not as fast as the new Super VWC from Oppo that you get on the special editions of the Find X, but is faster than the regular VWC and dash charging, which itself are one of the fastest. You need to use the bundle Huawei charger, which is rated 5V 2A, 9V 2A or 10V at 4A to get those speeds, which also shows a supercharging status. A regular fast charger would show fast charging and a regular charger will just show charging. But the charging story doesn't end there. Mate 20 Pro features Qi wireless fast charging up to 15W, but most importantly it features reverse wireless charging, which is the world's first. It's more of a marketing gimmick, yes, and it's not something that everyone will use often. I'm also not sure of the long-term effects it'll have on the battery, but it definitely can be a lifesaver, especially if you own another device that supports wireless charging but has a different connector such as micro USB or lightning port, but I've forgotten to take the cable. It also works if the Mate 20 Pro is plugged in, so essentially it becomes a wireless charger while getting charged at the same time. There's also an automatic cutoff, so in case it doesn't detect any device, it turns off the feature until you need it again. The Mate 20 Pro from Huawei is surprisingly good. I personally think it's the best all-in-one smartphone that you can buy in India today. The list of benefits far outweigh the cons, and it really shows that Huawei is a force to be reckoned with. The hardware game has improved by leaps and bounds, and the software too is finally reaching the same level. It's also interesting to see that Huawei is considering India as a region for important upmarket products and is planning to introduce more products from its ecosystem such as the MateBook laptop, Huawei GT Watch and more. This is Sandeep from RevAtlas. Thanks for watching this video.